One step across the threshold, and everything that once felt eternal turns into a nightmare. One move, and the world collapses without warning. When betrayal strikes from the place you trusted most, there's only one option: disappear. But the past doesn't let go so easily. Where is the line between vengeance and salvation? And who will you become when you lose everything? Greetings, my dear viewer. Please, tell me which city and country you're watching this video from. Maybe you're watching me from a small town or a gigantic metropolis. Write about it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. It will make me very happy. Let's get started. When John crossed the threshold of his house, he heard familiar sounds that felt out of place. It never occurred to him why he was home earlier than planned. He just was. He shoved the door open without thinking. "John, wait!" a broken voice called out. John advanced, and Brett instinctively stumbled back. Without hesitation, John grabbed a handful of the man's thinning hair and yanked him forward. "I should end you right here," John said, his voice low and disturbingly calm as he locked eyes with him. "Keep your chin up. You don't get to shy away." "I'll sue you. You're finished," Brett snarled. "Chin up," John repeated, his tone unnervingly flat, concealing the fury roiling inside him. "I mean it. I'll take you down." "Do you even know who you're threatening?" Brett barked out. "Does it look like I give a damn?" John snapped back. Brett, defiant, lifted his chin and braced himself for impact. John gave a grim, cold smile before delivering several hard punches. "Oh my God, John!" a voice screamed. "What have you done?" Maggie gasped, horror-stricken. "Brett, I've got a million things I could ask you," John said between breaths. "But now isn't the time. I need to get out before I do worse to you than I already have." His voice dipped into a chilling softness. "And by the way, screw you." Whenever John was furious, he never yelled. Instead, he spoke so softly that people had to strain to hear him, which made it even more terrifying. "John, do you even realize who you just hit?" Maggie stammered, pressing trembling hands to her mouth. "I asked him the same thing," John said, his voice like ice. "You think I care? How could you?" "In our bed," he said bitterly, each word cutting deep. "Screw you." Turning away from Maggie's frantic sobs, John stormed down the hall. "Stay the hell away from me," he growled. Outside, he climbed into his pickup, drove to the nearest liquor store, and grabbed a bottle of bourbon. Parking in a Walmart lot, he twisted the cap off and drank straight from the bottle, silently watching the stream of cars pass. His phone buzzed. Maggie's name flashed on the screen. He let it ring until it stopped, then again and again. Finally he answered, voice clipped. "Yeah? John, please, where are you? Come back." "We have to talk this through," Maggie pleaded. "It's done," John said, his voice empty. "You mean me and Brett?" "No," she said quickly. "He woke up furious, screamed at me, and left." "Good for him," John answered, completely detached. "Hope you enjoyed round 2. "No," Maggie sobbed. "Doesn't matter now," John said, his tone arctic. "How can you say that?" she protested. "I wouldn't even touch a whore like you," he hissed. "Lose my number." "John, please just tell me where you are," she begged. Without replying, John hung up and took another long drink. By sunrise, John's body ached from the cramped sleep in the truck cab. He badly needed coffee and a restroom. The dashboard clock blinked 7:30 a.m. He ducked into Walmart again, grabbed new jeans and a shirt, and changed right there in the parking lot. When he reached his office, it was chaos. 37 voicemails, 20 unread emails, and 3 missed calls, all from Maggie. Bob walked into the room, waving a hand in front of his nose. "Jesus, man, you reek of bourbon." Bob leaned in, sniffing dramatically. "Maker's Mark 2019, he joked. "Good year." John gave a humorless smile. "Bad day yesterday. Worse night." He dropped his head into his hands, exhausted. "What happened? Maggie giving you hell?" Bob asked. Screw Maggie, John muttered, bloodshot eyes meeting Bob's. You didn't… Actually? Bob trailed off, hesitant. John let out a dry, bitter laugh. You think I'm kidding? I came home early, walked right into it, found them, in my bed. Christ, Bob whispered. You sure? I stood there and watched, John said, holding up bruised, raw knuckles. Put him down. Shit, Bob breathed. He's one of the partners at the firm. Didn't have much to say after I was done. In a low voice, Bob asked, Did you finish him? No. And now the little bald bastard's out for revenge. Might have been better if you had, Bob said grimly. In the heat of passion? You could have pled down. Now, they'll call it assault. You're screwed, man. I loved her, John said, his voice cracking under the weight. More than I thought I ever could love anyone. A single tear slid down John's face. Did you ask her why? Bob asked softly. No, John whispered. I don't want to hear it. You'll never get peace if you don't ask, Bob said gently. I know. John clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. I don't care anymore. I'm done. You're leaving? Bob asked, stricken. We built this business from scratch after college, man. Don't throw it all away. I can't buy you out, Bob said desperately. We'll work something out, John said. But this afternoon, I'm getting on a boat, and I'm gone. I'll call when I get there, John said. Wait, John. Where exactly are you headed? She pressed. I won't know until I arrive, he answered. I'll call you then. And keep the paychecks coming, he added. If anything feels wrong or out of place, reach out and we'll fix it. He reassured her he'd continue working remotely on the design projects and promised to send his updated banking info once he was settled. Without another word, John gathered his essentials and headed for his truck. His first stop was the bank, where he opened a new account and picked up a temporary set of checks. He scribbled a short note for Bob, left it behind, and drove toward the marina. When he pulled in, the docks were alive with activity. There, sleek and waiting, was his 33-foot Grady white yacht. The beam stretched a roomy 5 feet, and the boat had been upgraded with a massive 560-gallon fuel tank. Twin Yamaha 350s rested on the stern, giving it serious power. Settling at the helm, John focused intently on the GPS, calculating distances, fuel consumption, and necessary supplies. His planned route would carry him past Virginia Beach, Charleston, Jacksonville, Cape Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, and finally to Nassau. He intended to cover several hundred miles a day, aiming to complete the trip within a week or two, if the weather allowed. A brewing storm in the Gulf loomed as a threat, but he clung to hope that it would veer north and spare him. Mapping out each leg of the trip dulled the raw ache inside him. He needed to get moving, fast, before anyone had a chance to find him. Once he reached the open sea, he'd have only solitude and the dangers of solo sailing for company. When his phone rang, he ignored it, letting it go straight to voicemail. The message was short and sharp. You can't just disappear. Talk to me. The words sparked a flash of anger in him. Walk away? Did she consider them before getting involved with Brett? Almost against his better judgment, he returned the call. John, where are you? She cried the moment she picked up. I've been so worried. Where I am doesn't matter anymore, he said with a cold edge. I need answers. Please just come back. Please don't give up on us, she begged. You gave up first, he snapped. Remember the school fundraiser? That should have been my wake-up call. I listened to my heart instead of my instincts. And now look at me, completely screwed. Back at home, Maggie sat paralyzed at her desk, staring at a photo of John, sun-browned, smiling, proudly holding up a fish he'd caught. Fishing trips, work trips. That was his life. She had tagged along a few times but hated the dusty little towns he frequented, like Mountain Home, Arkansas, or Monroeville, Alabama. The last trip she'd taken with him had been to oil fields north of Guatemala. She spent the whole time miserable, grumbling in the sweltering heat, while John put in grueling 14-hour days. When he dragged himself back at night, worn out, she would drag him out again to forced social events he couldn't stand. John had encouraged her to avoid the workforce altogether, but Maggie had other ambitions. She had enrolled in law school, earned her degree, and eventually landed a paralegal job she loved. The thrill of the big cases and the non-stop buzz of the legal world pulled her in. One afternoon, a junior partner called her into his office. Maggie, always aware of the advantage her good looks and sharp mind gave her, didn't miss the interest in his eyes. "We've got a high-stakes land case moving fast," he told her. "All the zoning paperwork's technically in order. We just need the city's final okay." He paused before adding, "It's going to mean some late nights. Are you willing?" She flashed a confident smile. "Sounds exciting. Where's it located?" "Right outside D.C., just across the Maryland border," he replied. She accepted immediately, barely giving it a second thought. Now, looking back, she struggled to pinpoint exactly how things had spiraled out of control. Late nights working turned into late-night meals, starting at a sandwich shop, then moving on to nicer restaurants, and finally to nightclubs. John was usually away from Monday to Thursday, leaving them long stretches apart. The night she danced with Brett, she had felt it, that crossing of an unseen line. It thrilled her to realize he wanted her. A little harmless flirting couldn't hurt, she told herself. Right? "We can't, Brett," she whispered fiercely. "We're married, just not to each other. Please, not here. Don't." Meanwhile, out on the water, John was studying weather updates. Conditions seemed safe enough to make a run to Virginia Beach. He planned to refuel there quickly before heading south toward Charleston, steering clear of Oregon Bay. After a stop to restock groceries, he powered down the engines, secured the boat, and left the dock behind. As he looked back at his truck sitting there, a wave of sadness hit him, like saying goodbye to an old companion. Out on the Chesapeake, he engaged the autopilot and tied up at a guest dock for the night. When he finally checked his phone, the screen was overwhelmed. 54 text messages, 30 unread emails, and 5 missed calls, all from Maggie. It was time to face it. "John, please listen," she pleaded in a message. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "It is something," he shot back. "You lied. You destroyed what we had." "When did this even start?" he asked bitterly. "Come home," she begged, her voice breaking. "We can fix it." "I'm not coming back," John said. "Where are you?" she cried. "Gone," he answered. "You left? Where did you go?" "Far away," he said, his tone flat. "You broke my heart," he said quietly. And then he ended the call. John's voice wavered, thick with anger. "Screw you. Don't ever call me again. As far as I'm concerned, I no longer exist to you. Goodbye." "John, please don't go." "Please," Maggie pleaded, her voice breaking. "Goodbye, Maggie." "I wish you all the happiness in the world," he said coldly. "Come on, Brett. Let's leave." John disappeared into the night, and Maggie, stunned and numb, followed Brett silently toward his car. During the ride back, she clutched her phone tightly, panic rising in her chest. Conflicting emotions, fury, regret, confusion, swirled inside her. Why was John always away, always off chasing some new fishing trip? In a reckless moment of denial, she told herself it was a mistake she could erase, a secret she'd bury forever. John would never have to know. When they reached the house, she staggered straight into the bedroom and collapsed, only stirring at 11 a.m. "Brett, stop," she mumbled, still half asleep. "This can't happen again." "You know you enjoyed it," Brett coaxed with a sly grin. "Shut up, Brett. I'm serious. This ends now," she snapped back. "But Maggie," he pressed, "after being with you, I can't just go back to pretending everything's normal." "You're going to ruin everything," she said, her voice rising in panic. "I love my husband. If he ever finds out, he'll destroy us both." Tears spilled freely down her face. "What do you want to make this end?" she asked, desperation thick in her voice. I can't lose everything. I love him. Just one more night, Brett bargained. Then we'll talk. You're disgusting, she hissed between sobs. John, how did we come to this? Why wasn't I enough for you? I gave you everything. Elsewhere, John sat by the docks, opting to wait out an approaching storm rather than brave the churning waters. He unfolded a cheap chair, planted it on the weathered boards, and watched strangers meander past. Try as he might, he couldn't force out the images of Maggie and Brett. Memories crashed over him relentlessly, sharper and crueler with each wave. He remembered the first time he saw her in the student union, the way the sunlight caught her hair, the effortless grace in her laughter, the piercing clarity of her ice-blue eyes. She had glanced directly at him and smiled, sending a flush to his cheeks. Embarrassed, he scrambled to pack up his books, convinced she was far out of his league. As he hurried past, their gazes locked again. Hi, she said casually. Hey, he replied, flustered and awkward. She's incredible, he thought. I'm no genius, but maybe I didn't come across like a complete weirdo. Maybe she'll notice me again, he hoped. I'll never forget her. A few nights later, at a buzzing frat party, he found himself nursing a beer near the freshly tapped keg. Hey! A familiar voice called. He turned, and there she was. Didn't I see you at Gull's Nest the other day? She asked, her tone playful. Yeah, he said, shyly avoiding her gaze. I think so. Why didn't you come talk to me? She teased. I did say hi, he muttered. I just didn't think you'd want to talk to someone like me. His face burned with embarrassment. You're not exactly a chatterbox, huh? She laughed. Not really, he admitted, managing a small smile. You're making this so difficult, she teased, grinning. You're really straightforward, he said, the corner of his mouth twitching upwards. It's a talent, she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder with a laugh that made John's heart ache. He knew then he'd do almost anything to hear that laugh again. She's way out of my league, he thought. I should leave before I make an even bigger fool of myself. I should probably go, he said awkwardly. Big test tomorrow. Wait, she said quickly. What's your major? Engineering, he answered. I have a thermodynamics test coming up soon, she said with a grimace. I don't even know what that is, she admitted sheepishly. I like engineering because it forces creativity within strict boundaries, he explained. That sort of makes sense, she said, trying to follow along. Here's the thing, he said, leaning in a bit. From across the room, you're easily a 9. Smiling, you're a 9.5. Laughing, you're a 10. Me? I'm maybe a 5, on a good day. She laughed loudly, making him blush even harder. You're not supposed to date someone more than a couple notches above you, he said, half joking. The one on the bottom always ends up miserable. That's just how it goes. Don't tell me you actually believe that, she said, still giggling. I do, he said, giving her a soft, sad smile. I'd put you on a pedestal. You'd realize eventually that I wasn't enough. I'm obsessed with school, with projects. It's who I am. There was something about his honesty that tugged at her, something endearing and completely vulnerable. I'm kind of a mess, too, he added quickly. Cluttered, disorganized, a walking disaster sometimes. You're not, she said firmly. I just tolerate a lot of chaos, he joked with a shy shrug. For a heartbeat, he tuned out everything, the music, the chatter, seeing only her. You'd stop smiling eventually, stop laughing. Then some amazing guy would come along and you'd see you deserve better. You'd leave, and I'd be wrecked. Maybe it's better to skip to the end now. You're insane, she said, laughing even harder. In my mind, he said softly, we already had our relationship. And we ended it kindly, still friends. He leaned in close, brushed his lips near her ear and whispered, Goodbye, my love, before slipping away into the crowd. She stood frozen, rooted to the spot as he vanished into the night. She wanted to run after him, but found herself unable to move. 2 days later, John sat alone in the student center, nose in a book, when a bubbly blonde bounced up to him. "Hey," she chirped. "Mindy, meet my ex." For a while, our marriage had been full of joy, until his insecurities surfaced, and he walked away. "Hey, ex." "Hey, Mindy. He doesn't even remember your name. You two never actually tied the knot." "We might as well have," she replied casually. "And your name is?" he asked. "If I'm going to waste my feelings on someone, I should at least know who it is." "John." "Maggie," she said, gripping his hand with surprising firmness, her touch as soft as velvet. They spent hours talking, neither noticing when Mindy quietly slipped away. "Thanks for keeping me company, Maggie. Hope your weekend's a good one. I'll be keeping an eye out for you, John," she said with a bright grin. "If you ever asked me out, I'd probably say yes. Maggie, you're way out of my league. You're a 10, and I'm barely a 5. Looks aren't everything," she told him, "and you're definitely worth more than a 5. Now that I know how smart and kind you are," he said sincerely, "a 10 hardly does you justice. You're amazing. Don't sell yourself short." She smiled shyly. "You're tall, strong, but not intimidating, and your face—" "You're beautiful," she said in a near whisper. "So why do you scare me so much?" Locking eyes with his warm, rare brown ones, she added, "When you laugh, it feels like the whole world lifts. And your smile, it weakens my knees. Even when you're rambling about the most boring topics," she said, laughing softly, "I hang on every word. I'd give anything to hear you laugh again." She chuckled lightly, and he watched her with silent tenderness. "You hide your hurt so well and always put others first," she continued. "That's impossible to resist. I'm terrified you'll break my heart, and worse, that I'd have no one to blame but myself." "Did you just say you love me?" he asked, his voice almost disbelieving. "I did," she breathed. "I should go now. See you soon." "John, wait," she cried as he reached the door. "Don't make me beg. Come to dinner with me tomorrow night." He hesitated at the doorway, wrestling with himself, then shook his head regretfully. "I have a big exam Thursday morning. How about Thursday night?" "I can't Thursday, but Friday's open." "Okay," he said. "Let's meet here at 6. She leaned in, brushed a quick kiss across his lips, and dashed off into the rain. John watched her retreat through the misty window, not noticing the man beside him chuckling softly. "You're done for, kid." "She's got you wrapped around her finger," the man said with a knowing grin. John slumped in his chair as the cold, unending rain seeped into his bones. Numb, he stumbled back to his cabin, collapsed onto the bed, and let his tears blend with the dampness on his face. His chest ached with how deeply he missed her. That night, he swore to himself he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. When John awoke, sunlight streamed through the windows, almost mockingly bright. He made scrambled eggs and sat at the tiny table alone, each bite tasting like regret. Glancing at his phone, he noticed several messages from his sons, Jimmy and Sydney. The guilt over how they were caught up in all this gnawed at him. Jimmy, freshly graduated and working a new internship, had called to say he didn't need the monthly support anymore. He wanted to stand on his own. Sydney, now deep into his doctorate and as much a lover of the sea as his father, still joked constantly, teasing John about studying ocean engineering, where rust and salt were eternal enemies. The thought coaxed the first genuine smile from John in days. He dialed Sydney back. "Hey, Sid, got your call," he said when his son answered. "Hey, Pops, where have you disappeared to? I'm taking some time for myself." "Doing a bit of traveling," John said, feeling the familiar ache settle in again. "Mom's losing it, Dad. What's happening?" "You don't need all the details, kiddo. Just know I had to step away for a while. She's freaking out, wanting to know where you are." "If I told you, you'd just tell her," John said firmly. "Please, Sid, let it be." Dad, seriously. What happened? Nothing you have to worry about. Just remember, I'm here if you need anything. Leave a message if I don't answer. Are you on the boat? Heading north or south? I'm sailing, yeah. North or south. I've got to go now. I'll call you again. Love you, Sid. Love you too, Dad. When Jimmy called, John braced himself. Dad, where the hell are you? What's going on? Mom's a wreck. Jimmy, I didn't do anything wrong. Go home. Don't act like a kid, John said, trying to stay calm. Don't pick a side when you don't know the whole story, John warned. I just need time. I'll check in. If you can't even tell me what's happening, I'm staying out of it, Jimmy snapped, his voice sharp and angry. That flash of anger jolted John out of his emotional haze. Listen close, Jim, John said, his voice turning steely. Don't take sides until you know the full truth. Mom thinks you left her for someone else. I'm traveling for work. There's no other woman. She can keep everything. The house, the car. I never betrayed her. Don't do this, Dad, Jimmy said, his voice cracking painfully. And stop calling yourself Jimmy, he barked. You're Jim now, remember? You're acting like Jimmy right now, John replied, his sadness bleeding through. Let's not tear each other apart over this. Not now. Not again. He had to get going. Damn it. John had always been close to both of his boys, but Jimmy had naturally gravitated more toward their mother and blossomed into a strong athlete. John often doubled as his chauffeur and unofficial coach. They seemed tightly bonded, or at least that's what John had always believed. He was fairly sure Sid would be understanding, but Jimmy, he feared, might make up his mind too fast. A quick glance at the marine weather forecast for the stretch between Virginia Beach and Wilmington, North Carolina showed good news. Calm seas expected for the next 72 hours. If fortune stayed on his side, he'd reach St. Augustine before the next storm system rolled in. Then, he'd be able to rest a bit before pushing on toward Palm Beach. It promised to be a grueling journey. After baiting his fishing hooks, John steered the boat through the bay's narrow channel and out into the open waters beyond. Southbound was the only path he cared about. With the autopilot set, old memories came flooding back. She says you're the best thing that's ever happened to her, Becky had once called out, perched on a short stone wall. Becky, come on. We had 2 dinners, 1 movie, a picnic, and a cookout. We kissed a handful of times. That's it, he'd replied. He first met Becky at that barbecue, another lively blonde, one of Maggie's old sorority friends. Maggie had been the one to slip Becky his number. I know, Becky said, but she says that night meant everything to her. She's crazy about you. Just make a move. You're kidding, right? Are we back in high school? John had laughed. She's not looking for casual weekends anymore. And seriously, why do you think she's stuck on you? You see all the guys who chase after her. Becky grinned mischievously. You're handsome, smart, funny, plus you're apparently a hell of a kisser. John had chuckled. Maybe I should open a kissing booth, huh? He shook his head, smiling. All right, I'll give her a call. But if we talk, it has to be something real. Becky had giggled. Good. She's miserable waiting for you to make the first move. John had smirked. Doesn't she realize phones work both ways? Becky shot him a pointed look. Fine, I'll call. Later that afternoon, John had gone over to the sorority house, where Maggie sat waiting for him on the front steps. Hi, Maggie, he said warmly. Hey, Becky, he added as Becky appeared from around the corner. How's everything? Becky asked casually. Maggie, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle from Becky's shoulder, smiled with almost teasing sweetness. Don't be late, love. I'll be upstairs. With a wink and a laugh, Becky darted inside. John, can we talk? Maggie asked softly. Of course, he agreed. He glanced around. Here? Too crowded. Let's walk. They wandered across the wide, grassy field until they found a quiet bench to sit on. Maggie broke the silence first. John, do you even like me? Do you think I'm beautiful? We've been over this, he said gently. Of course I do. Every guy notices you. What's going on? Just then, a Porsche roared past, with a guy leaning out and hollering, "Nice baby! Come ride with me!" John laughed under his breath, but Maggie, without missing a beat, flipped the guy off. "That's exactly the problem," John said, his tone shifting serious. "Every guy wants you." "But I only want you," Maggie said, her voice raw and honest. "Didn't seem that way last week at Bogart's," John pointed out. "You were holding some guy's hand." "He's just a friend," she insisted quickly. "It wasn't serious, just a casual hangout." "Why didn't you tell me?" John asked, a note of hurt slipping into his voice. "I'm looking for something real, something exclusive." "I can be that," Maggie said, earnest. "Even if I have to leave town for work? Even if I'm not around all the time?" he pressed. "You're the only one I care about," Maggie swore. "I'll end everything else. There's no one else serious, I promise." "Maggie, once trust is broken, it's almost impossible to fix," John warned quietly. "I would never betray you, John," she whispered, tears brimming. "So, we're really doing this?" he asked, a slight blush creeping into his cheeks. Maggie's smile grew tender. "Yes, John." "Thank you," he breathed. They spent the rest of the day wandering campus together, eventually grabbing a late lunch at the student center. While crossing a busy street, Maggie stumbled badly, twisting her ankle. John caught her before she hit the ground. "Ow, that hurts!" she gasped. John knelt, carefully tugging off her sneaker to inspect the injury. "No swelling yet, but you definitely shouldn't walk on it," he said. "We're going to the ER." Without hesitation, John scooped her into his arms and carried her all the way there. After a doctor confirmed it was a mild sprain, John lifted her once more, this time bringing her back to his apartment, settling her carefully onto his bed. Now, steering through the endless blue waves, John couldn't stop his thoughts from circling back to Maggie. His eyes stung as memories overwhelmed him. After refueling at a small marina, he anchored offshore for the night, setting up a folding chair on deck and sitting beneath the vast canopy of stars with a bottle of whiskey by his side. By morning, John's hangover had left him in no shape to sail. He remained docked, nursing his aching head. His phone buzzed relentlessly, vibrating and skittering across the table. Finally, he picked it up. "Hello?" he rasped. "John? Where are you? Why won't you come back so we can talk?" a desperate voice pleaded. "It's not my home anymore," John said, his words weighted with finality. "I'm not coming back. John, please, don't walk away like this. Don't act like it meant nothing. It was just one mistake. I can't stand being another tragic story. Just tell me one thing. Why?" "John, hear me out. I love you. Can't we find a way to get through this?" "Maggie, think back to when we first started dating. You said you were leaving Tom, but you weren't. Not really. And now? It's even worse. You've crushed every bit of trust I had in you. Just tell me why. I need to understand." "John, it was a horrible lapse. At least that's the first honest thing you've said. It destroyed everything, us, our marriage, everything we built together. Or have you forgotten?" John's anger tightened inside him, his gut twisting into knots. Hadn't he given her everything she could want? A home, a car, nice clothes, jewelry. He truly believed they had a good life. She never said she was unhappy, and now it seemed none of it was enough. He could hear her soft sobs through the receiver. "It's not you, John. It's me. To hell with that. Why, Maggie? I deserve the truth. John, just come back. Tell me where you are and I'll meet you. We can work this out." "No, I need the real answer first." "I don't know, John. It just happened. And if we don't even know why, how can we ever fix this? I'm done. Goodbye, Maggie. Please don't go." John ended the call. His thoughts wandered to the beginning of their story. He had seen the warning signs even then. She claimed she was ending things with Tom, but was that ever really the truth? His memories flickered like old film on a projector. Maggie laughing beside Tom, her hand resting lightly on his. John had stepped into view. "Hey, Maggie." One glance at her face told him everything he needed to know. They had agreed to be exclusive, and this clearly wasn't it. "John, this is Tom. Nice meeting you." Tom extended his hand, but John just ignored it. "Sure. It was good seeing you, Maggie." He turned sharply and walked away, fists clenching at his sides, fighting the urge to lash out. "John, wait. Sorry, no time." Maggie sat there, torn. She had planned to end things with Tom, but hadn't found the courage yet. Tom looked after John, confused. "Who was that?" he asked, uncertainty written across his face. "That's John. I needed to talk to you about him." "Talk to me about what?" "He's my boyfriend." "Then why are you here with me?" "I was going to explain. Maybe over dinner. I can't blame him for being upset." "Goodbye, Maggie." "Tom, don't go." Meanwhile, John had wandered to the campus library, but focusing on studying was impossible. Giving up, he headed back home. "Hey, you're back. The girl you mentioned? She's been calling non-stop, every 20 minutes. The phone rang again. "I don't want to talk to her." "What should I tell her?" "Tell her I'm not here, and she needs to stop bugging you." "What? Did she kill your dog or something?" "Hello?" Ray picked up the phone. "No, he's not around. No idea where he is. He's just not here." Ray hung up and shot John a half smile. "Come on, let's grab a drink. First 3 rounds are on me." That night, over beers, John unloaded everything about Maggie, how they met, their first dates, how deeply he had fallen for her. The more he drank, the more the anger and pain seeped out. Ray was almost relieved when John finally grew quiet, words slurring into silence. Booze didn't solve anything, but it numbed him enough. After finals, John left school and spent a week back home with his parents. His father took him out sailing on their 32-foot Nicholson, a tradition that always brought him calm. Out there, with the salty air, the dolphins racing alongside them, and the endless stars hanging low near the coast, John found a measure of peace. But one regret gnawed at him. He'd never shared this part of himself with Maggie. When they docked, he was surprised to find Maggie standing there, waiting. "How did you know where to find me?" "I didn't want you to be alone. I looked everywhere. Ray said you left, but I found an envelope with your address. I went to your house. I spent time with your mom. I told her everything. She told me you were coming back today. I was terrified I'd miss you. She warned me not to expect a warm welcome, that you don't open up easily. But she knew something serious had happened. She said it wasn't like you to just vanish from school. And she was right. I don't want you here anymore." "Why, John?" "I told you. I needed time to end this the right way." "Did you sleep with him? How could you even think that?" "No, John. Not this time. You know I'm not some fling. We made a promise to stay loyal. I kept it. Tom didn't get that. He walked out on me in a restroom, and that was it. I haven't seen him since. He's gone, John." "I only want you," she begged, voice trembling. He was already turning away. "Seeing you standing there with him, it destroyed me, Maggie. I'm not here to fight for your attention. It's either real between us, or it's over. If you love me, you won't even consider anyone else," he snapped. "If you cross that line, I'm done. I came here today ready to prove how serious I was about us. But now, standing here, it all feels meaningless. I'm sorry, Maggie. I see it now, how wrong it all looked." "It won't happen again," she whispered. "Please, can't we just go back to the way it was?" "Don't leave." "Maggie," John said, his voice thick with heartbreak. "If you had been honest with me, maybe I could have forgiven you. But finding you like that made me feel like you were hiding everything. I can't live with that hanging over me." John shook his head, torn between staying and walking away. For months, things between them had been cold and brittle, but Maggie's persistence had started to break through his defenses. He had begun to let her in again, piece by piece. He picked up a glass of warm water, his mind spinning. Why hadn't I seen it before? Had she been lying to me for years? Was our whole life a sham? He stood, preparing to set sail again, gathering up his supplies. That night, haunted by doubts, he barely closed his eyes. By morning, he had made up his mind. Head south, first to Georgia, then Florida, then onward to Nassau. "Oh, Maggie," he muttered under his breath, "what am I supposed to do now?" Meanwhile, Maggie broke down sobbing in front of Becky. "He's gone. I've lost him. I've lost everything," she choked out. "Maggie, what the hell were you thinking?" Becky snapped. "You threw away 3 decades for some nobody. How are you going to explain this to the boys?" "I'm not," Maggie whispered miserably. "And then what?" Becky pushed, as Maggie's tears came faster. "Just cry about it until it goes away? Have you even spoken to them?" "Not much. Since John left, I keep calling, hoping he'll reach out to them," she mumbled. "Jimmy said John called him once. Sid hasn't mentioned anything. So right now, they're probably thinking John just abandoned you out of nowhere. They're going to start blaming him. Is that what you want?" "You don't deserve him, Maggie." "I was good," Maggie insisted weakly. "I just made a mistake." "You call that a mistake?" Becky hissed. "You slept with him, in John's bed. Think about that. Do you honestly think John can ever wipe that image from his mind?" Maggie crumbled further under the weight of Becky's words. "If it had just happened in some random place, if you had gone home alone, maybe John could have gotten past it someday. But you brought that man into John's home, into the bed you shared. And John caught you there. How can you ever explain that away?" "You broke the best man I've ever met," Becky said, voice rising in anger. "He gave everything to you. He spent his life coaching kids, helping others, loving you. Do you know how many women tried to throw themselves at him? He never even looked, and you threw him away like he was nothing. I have to fix this," Maggie sobbed. "I have to show him I still love him." "You can try," Becky said coldly. "But don't expect miracles. If you can even get him to talk to you again, if you can grovel, beg, and completely tear yourself apart, then maybe you'll have a chance. Maybe. But you better make sure the boys hear the truth too. If they think John's the villain, you'll lose them too. Do you understand?" "I've ruined everything," Maggie whispered brokenly. "I need him to talk to me. He has to." Out on the deck, John sat cross-legged, an old pump clutched in his hands. He wore faded shorts and a threadbare t-shirt, his skin darkened by weeks under the Caribbean sun. "Hi there." "I'm Sarah," a voice called out. "Hey," John answered without looking up. He turned the pump over in his hands, focusing on a stubborn locking ring. Maybe if he twisted it just right, he could get it loose. "What are you fixing?" she asked, stepping closer. "This pump," he replied. "Why?" "It's broken." "And what's it supposed to do?" "It sends seawater into a storage tank," he said, still distracted. She chuckled. "I'm even more confused now." Her playful tone finally made him glance up. She stood before him, sun-kissed and slender. Her long blonde hair lit up by the sunlight. He couldn't see her eyes through the glare, but she was smiling warmly. And to his surprise, he found himself smiling back. "It's for baitfish," she said, stepping nearer. "The pump pulls ocean water into the tank so the fish stay alive. The fresh water keeps the oxygen flowing and stops them from dying." It was the longest conversation John had shared with anyone in weeks, and it felt strangely good. "What did you enjoy about it, Sarah?" John asked. "I liked the way you explained everything. You didn't make me feel stupid." "Thank you," she replied. "I'm glad it helped," John said with a small nod. "You're not much of a talker, are you?" Sarah teased gently. "Not usually," John confessed. "Would you mind if I came aboard and took a look around?" she asked. "Is there something you need help with, Sarah?" John offered, sensing there might be more behind her request. "I'm trying to fix my pump, hoping to head out and fish later today," she said. Then, quickly, she added, "I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. My parents thought being here would be good for me, but honestly, it just stirs up old memories. John noticed a shadow pass over her face. If you're just looking for company, I might not be the best option, he said gently. I do my best not to linger on the past. You here alone? She asked, her voice softening. No family with you? John stiffened slightly at the question. My ex stayed behind. The kids are adults now, he said, his voice low. So you made the trip out here solo? Yeah, John said. I'm actually trying to get a replacement pump. You're welcome to stop by later if you like. Would it be all right if I came along? She asked. To get the pump? Yeah. No problem, John replied. I just need to swing by the supply shop first. Can you wait a minute? I need to check in with my mom. Sure, take your time, John said. He watched her jog toward a sleek, modern sailboat about 60 feet long. She looked like she might be in her early 20s. A man popped his head out of the cabin. John gave him a small wave, but the man didn't respond. When Sarah returned, John noticed she was closer to her early 30s. Fine lines around her eyes and mouth gave her away. Your parents okay with you heading out? He asked. They're just being overly protective, Sarah said with a shrug. Things were rough before we got here. I'm sorry. They walked toward the marina office, the lively beat of steel drums growing louder as they moved. They passed by a tiki bar with sand spread over the floor. Want to grab a drink? John offered, surprising even himself. I'd love that. Are you sure you don't mind? She asked. Not at all. I haven't had a real conversation with anyone in weeks, John said. What are you having? Sarah asked as they approached the bar. I think I'll go with a glass of white wine, John said with a grin. They chose a table away from the main crowd, tucked into a quieter corner. A soft breeze stirred the muggy summer air, bringing a little relief. So, John, Sarah began, how long have you been around here? What's your story? John leaned back in his chair. I went through a pretty rough divorce. My family thought getting away might help clear my head, he said. They rented a boat for you? She asked, laughing, though sadness lingered behind her smile. Her teeth were bright against the deep green of her eyes. Could be worse, John said with a chuckle. They obviously care about you. Sarah shrugged again. A nasty divorce. Now I'm stuck living on a boat with two people who are still crazy about each other. It just reminds me of what I lost. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Sorry for unloading all that on you, she whispered. She pushed back her chair and stood. I should probably go. Please stay, John said quickly. I understand more than you think. She's too young to have dealt with so much, John thought to himself. I'm almost 30, Sarah said, catching the look on his face. She let out a shaky sigh. My whole life changed in 15 minutes. I walked out and never went back, she said quietly. I'm really sorry, John said sincerely. You're divorced too? She asked. No, we never made it official, John replied. Have you been in touch since you left? She asked cautiously. We talked a few times while I was sailing down here. Mostly me asking questions she didn't really answer. It took about a week and a half to sail down, John added, and I've been docked here for nearly another week. Sarah leaned back, her brows drawn together in concern. Her compassion touched John more than he expected. Do you want to talk about it? She offered. Maybe another time, he said. Not today. When are you planning to head back? John asked. We probably have about 2 weeks left here, maybe a little less, she said. Dad's been having trouble with the steering and Mom and I aren't much help. Must be frustrating for him, John said, glancing down at his phone. 23 unread messages flashed across his screen. He pulled up the marine weather report. Strong winds tomorrow, calmer the next day. Maybe once the weather clears I can help get your boat moving, John suggested. You think your dad would let me lend a hand with the steering? I wouldn't tell him you know what you're doing, Sarah said with a little smile. Might bruise his ego. My dad had a 30-footer when I was a kid, We spent a lot of time sailing. It's like riding a bike, John said. Sarah's face lit up. Would you want to join us for lunch tomorrow? She asked, hope and nerves mingling in her voice. Maybe you could give Dad a little help. It would mean so much to me. John smiled warmly. Sounds good. Let's meet back here around noon. I'm sorry, John. You've got so much on your plate already, and here I am making it worse, Sarah said, her voice thick with guilt. John gave a small, reassuring shake of his head. It's really okay, Sarah. I don't mind at all. The next day, just past noon, John walked down to the marina where he spotted Sarah waving from the dock. As he neared, he exchanged a firm handshake with an older gentleman. John Baker. Nice to meet you, John said courteously. Ben Livingston, the man replied, offering a reserved smile, his eyes briefly scanning John in assessment. You've spent time sailing? Ben asked, skepticism evident in his tone. Yes, sir, John answered. My dad owned a 32-foot Nicholson. Sailing was a big part of my childhood summers. Sarah stepped closer, her smile bright. John, this is my mom, Beth Livingston. Beth, who bore an uncanny resemblance to Sarah but with the added grace of age, welcomed him warmly. Hi, John. We're really grateful you're here. Sarah said you're a sailor, and Ben's thrilled to have some company out on the water tomorrow. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. For a while, Ben and Beth casually quizzed John, subtly probing his sailing knowledge. John quickly realized they knew more about his personal life than he'd expected, including the fact that he was recently divorced, going through a rough patch, and had stepped away from his engineering job for almost a month. Plans were quickly put in place. Later that afternoon, John lay stretched across the boat's bow, soaking in the gentle breeze and the glinting surface of the water. Sarah soon joined him, lying beside him and gazing up at the sky. Penny for your thoughts, John, she teased playfully. They're probably not worth a whole penny, he replied with a grin. Maybe I should be paying you instead. You've made my dad happier than I ever imagined, she said, emotion threading through her words. John shrugged modestly. He's stronger than he knows. I just gave him a little encouragement. Softly, Sarah asked, So what's next for you? I think it's time to stop hiding, John admitted. I need to reconnect with work, face my kids, and start splitting everything with my ex. Stand by! Ben's voice rang out from the helm. Sarah laughed as John pushed himself up, feeling a rare, genuine smile stretch across his face. It's wonderful to see him like this, Sarah said, her gaze lingering. And look at how your mom watches him. John's smile faltered, his expression darkening with a flicker of regret. I thought I had everything figured out, he murmured. He moved purposefully to trim the sails, adjusting the lines to keep the mainsail full and steady. Ahead of them, he could see the harbor growing closer, signaling that their afternoon adventure was winding down. Leaning against a pile of sailbags, he let out a breath. I'm not exactly excited about what's coming, John said quietly. I understand, Sarah replied with a gentle nod. I went through something similar not long ago. I hope we can stay in touch. He could sense her heart racing even as he responded in a low voice, moved by her vulnerability. Maybe this isn't perfect timing, but meeting you, it's reminded me that good people still exist. Sarah's cheeks flushed pink, and she looked away shyly. Good men too, Sarah, John said softly. If only life had brought us together sooner. Later, after they had furled the sails, John expertly steered the boat back to the marina and tied it off with practiced ease. Switching off the engine, he called up to Ben. That was incredible. Thanks for today. It brought back so many good memories. Thank you, son, Ben replied, his voice full of gratitude. Would you consider joining us again later this week? Ben asked, his face lighting up with hope as the breeze tousled his silver hair. I'd really like that, John said warmly. I'll just need to rearrange a few things first. Can I call you? Of course, We'd love to have you, Ben said. I know Sarah would be happy too. And so would I, sir, John added sincerely. Need any help tidying up? Ben chuckled, motioning toward the deck where Sarah and Beth were already scrubbing away. Looks like the ladies have it covered. In that case, I'll get going. Enjoy the rest of your evening, John said, hopping onto the dock with a buoyant step. As he walked off, he muttered with a chuckle, feel like a British captain on the Wubby too, amused by his own joke. But when he boarded his own boat, down deep, the laughter quickly ebbed away. That all too familiar loneliness crept back in, sharper now than before. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to really feel again. Frustration surged within him. Almost without thinking, he grabbed his phone and turned it on for the first time in days. Ignoring the flood of missed calls and unread messages, he quickly dialed Bob's number. "John! You're alive!" Bob practically shouted. "Where the hell have you been?" "I'm in Nassau," John replied dully. "No kidding? How are you holding up?" "I'm still plenty angry, Bob," John said, without sugarcoating it. "Yeah, I figured as much," Bob replied. "Listen, we've hit a problem with Alexander's project. The valve and elbow joint keep failing. You need me to redesign it?" John asked immediately. "Maybe change the valve position or ditch the elbow altogether. How urgent is it?" "If you've got time, I can shoot you the schematics," Bob said hopefully. "Send them. I'll take a look and let you know. If you fix this, I won't feel bad about dropping your paycheck tomorrow," Bob joked. "Actually, hold off for a day or two," John said, a hint of heaviness in his voice. "I need to get my finances sorted, start officially dividing things up. She's been calling non-stop, asking if I've heard from you," Bob said cautiously. "Mind if I tell her you finally checked in? You can let her know we spoke. Just don't give away where I am. Make sure she understands I won't say a single word to her until she offers some kind of explanation. I've already said that once, but it wouldn't hurt for her to hear it again. How should I get in touch with you? I've called your phone over and over, but it just goes straight to voicemail. I haven't turned it on. I'll give you a call every day around 3 a.m. unless I'm out fishing. If I'm on the water, I'll call you as soon as I'm back on land." John and Bob had a long talk, catching up on old times, tossing around ideas about projects, equipment upkeep, and hiring issues. It wasn't until after John ended the call that it hit him just how strangely normal the conversation had been. "Dad, where are you? This isn't funny anymore. Mom's been panicking, calling me constantly. Jim's been reaching out too. What's happening?" Sid's voice was strained as he asked. "Sid, I don't want to get into all the messy details. Things went south and I don't think there's any mending it. Mom said the cops are involved. What happened? I beat someone up. Hit him more than once. Honestly, I wish I'd hit harder. Dad, that's not nothing. When are you coming back? I'm not sure yet. I'll visit when I can, but I've got to handle a few things first." "Where are you exactly, Dad?" "Not too far from town. Once your mom and I sort things out, I'll tell you where and you can come see me." "Jimmy's furious. He said your last call ended badly. He keeps pressing for answers about Mom. She won't say a word, just cries all the time. He'll cool down eventually. She will too." "Dad, come on. Please just be straight with me. Look, just know I'm safe. I'll be back soon enough. I'll ring you when I'm nearby. Maybe we can grab a meal together. Kristen's been asking about you, Dad. Tell her I said hi. I'll call her myself in a week or two." After hanging up, John pulled out a chair, uncorked a fresh bottle of whiskey, and sat alone in the heavy silence. Hours drifted by until John felt someone nudging his arm. It was Sarah. "John, come on. You need to lie down. You shouldn't be out here like this. Not tonight. I'm not exactly great company right now. Doesn't matter. Get up and get some rest. We'll figure this out in the morning. You realize you're beautiful, right? In your state, John, everyone probably looks beautiful." "Not everyone," Sarah replied, smiling gently as she helped him toward the cabin. She guided him to the bed, pulled the blanket up over him, and kissed his forehead before he drifted off, snoring lightly. "We'll talk tomorrow, John." She watched him for a few seconds longer, then quietly slipped off the boat into the night. The next morning, John woke groggy, tallying in his mind how often lately he'd drunk himself into oblivion. For some reason, keeping count felt important. "John, get up. I made breakfast, eggs and bacon." John stumbled toward the stairs, shielding his eyes from the bright light, while Sarah chuckled. "You actually weren't too bad last night." "Yeah, about last night. Was I a complete fool? If I was, I'm sorry. You told me I was beautiful and that you loved me. If you meant it, great. If not, well, yeah, then you were an idiot." "Oh, hell. I'm sorry. I mean, of course you're beautiful, but Relax, John. I was just messing with you. But seriously, today's the day you open up. Can you dial down the sun first? It's blinding." John shielded his face with both hands. "It's good for you. Vitamin D, remember? Anyway, John, spill it. What's really going on? You really want the ugly truth? Language warning. I'm ready for it. I need to know what's tearing you apart. Keeping it inside is killing you." "I caught her with her boss." "When you say caught, do you mean you saw a message? Heard something?" "No. I mean I literally walked in on them. Full view. God. What did you do?" "I beat him 3 times as hard as I could manage. Then I looked at her and left." "Have you talked to her since?" "Only a couple of short, miserable calls while I was heading out here. I told her I wouldn't say another word until she gave me a reason. She hasn't. So just silence since then. You're still carrying the weight, though. Can't stop replaying it. Drinking yourself to sleep every night. I loved her, Sarah. With everything I had. I valued her more than anything." "You're speaking in the past tense. So you think it's really over?" "It's over. Whatever we had is broken for good. We had a rough start once before, and I worked through it. But this is different. Still, that look she gave me is something I'll never be able to erase. It's burned into my memory, gnawing away at whatever self-esteem I had left. Was I not good enough? Was I that terrible in bed? Did he do something I couldn't?" Sarah had laughed. "John, men worry about size way more than women care. For most of us, the real intimacy is emotional. The mind is the real hot spot," she said. I exhaled heavily. Maybe I just wasn't good enough in other ways. The guy she chose? Short, balding, an absolute jerk. I'm no model, but he wasn't exactly winning any prizes either. "You're better than you think, John," Sarah had once told me. It hadn't mattered much at the time. In truth, part of me should have seen it coming. But seen what? How could I have predicted it? Back in college, I made myself a promise. Never get involved with someone 2 leagues higher than you. It only ends one way, heartbreak. And in this case, I was firmly at the bottom rung. John, if she was that out of your league, she must have been something special. But remember, she cheated. Are you absolutely sure it's over? More sure than ever? I didn't hesitate. "I'm at a loss for words," I said. And honestly, what was there to say? "You don't want to hear about how time heals, or that there are other fish in the sea," Sarah said kindly. "You're hurting, and only time can ease that." She looked at me with real sadness. "I'm sorry." "Thanks, Sarah," I said softly. A single tear betrayed me, slipping down my face. Sarah visibly restrained herself from reaching out. "John, when you're ready to move forward, will you look me up? I'd like us to be friends. I know this isn't the moment, but maybe later," she said. I shook my head sadly. "Sarah, you're out of my league. Plus, I'm flying back next week. You'll be gone too." "That's okay," she replied with a gentle smile. "I'm only asking for friendship, that's all. I hope we do cross paths again, Sarah." "I really mean that," I said. As the plane lifted off from Miami toward BWI, John slumped into his seat, overwhelmed. Staring blankly out the window, he caught a glimpse of Sarah's boat far below and was flooded with grief. Happy memories of sailing with friends and family played before his eyes, only to be washed away by a rising tide of anger toward Maggie. When he finally stepped off the plane, Maggie was waiting. She looked awful, thinner, hollow-eyed, but still heartbreakingly beautiful. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice cold. "Bob told me when your flight landed. Please don't be mad at him." "John, I'm so sorry. Please just listen to me," she pleaded. "I'm not interested, unless you can explain why," I said bluntly. "Can you?" I can try. Please let me," she stammered. "It's a yes or no, Maggie," I said, cutting her off. I honestly don't know, John. I wake up every day wondering how I could have done what I did." Her body shook as she broke down, sobbing. "You're saying too much, Maggie. I'm exhausted from traveling. I need a hotel and some sleep. I'll call before I leave town. But understand this. Please, John. Don't go. Forgive me. Let's pretend this never happened. Come back home," she begged. "Maggie, we made a pact. No betrayal, no competition. I thought that meant, till death do us part. You ended it." "It's over," I said. I turned away from her and climbed into a waiting cab, leaving her behind, small and broken on the sidewalk. "John!" Bob called out brightly the next morning when I walked into the office. "Hey, Bob." "Good to see you," I replied. "Clients have been asking about you. They need you for the product launch. Can you head to St. Louis for a few weeks?" "I need to meet with a lawyer first. I've got some personal things to straighten out before I commit to anything," I said. "You hanging in there?" Bob asked, giving my shoulder a firm, reassuring squeeze. "My mind's clear, Bob. My heart feels dead. I honestly don't know if it'll ever be whole again," I admitted. I picked up a framed photo of Maggie from my desk, stared at it for a long moment, then tossed it into the trash can. "Everything around here reminds me of her. Maybe it's time I moved on." "You're the backbone of this company, John," Bob said warmly. "Actually, I have an idea. Once you're settled, let's have lunch and talk about it." "Bob, listen. I don't want to hear anything about Maggie. Don't even bring her up," I warned. Bob chuckled. "Relax. It's about work, not her. I need to make sure she gets no part of this business when the divorce goes through. I've got an appointment with an attorney tomorrow." "You'll be covered," Bob said, nodding. "I'm considering resigning, turning myself in for any technical violations, and then maybe coming back later as a consultant once the divorce is finalized. She'll only be able to go after what I've billed in consulting fees. First thing, I need to sit down with a lawyer. You think he's serious about pressing charges? Honestly, I hope he is. It gives us something we can bargain with. I'll hit back with a lawsuit for alienation of affection, emotional distress, and anything else we can use to make him back off. We can sort the fine details out later." "I hate all of this, John. We built everything side by side. We'll get through it. It'll be different, sure, but life doesn't stop. I have to run." "Hey, John, how are you holding up?" Tim asked, extending his hand with a faint smile. "I've had better weeks, Tim," John answered. "I'm stuck in a mess that touches personal, family, criminal, and business law all at once." "I need advice," John said. "What's going on?" Tim asked. "About a month ago, I caught Maggie and her boss together," John said. "Ouch." "Where did this happen?" "In my own bedroom," John replied. "Jesus. What did you do?" "I dropped him with a punch and walked out." "Then I disappeared to Nassau for a month," John said. "I only just got back yesterday. Does Maggie know you're back?" "Yeah. She was waiting at the airport." "I'm filing for divorce," John said. "Can you either help me get started with the paperwork or refer me to someone? Also, there might be an assault case against me." "I think he pressed charges," John added. "Let me make some calls," Tim said. "Could you step outside for a few minutes? We might actually be able to flip this around for you. Getting fired for misconduct could block her from getting your stake. Problem is, unless you have proof, it's your word against theirs. Adultery's not so easy to prove." "Right," John agreed. "Let's bring Mary and George into this too," Tim suggested. "I'm worried about how much this is going to cost, though. What's your rate?" "Forget about my fee for now," John said. "We'll deal with that when the dust settles." Everything was uncertain. No formal charges had been filed yet, but even the thought of facing a judge was humiliating. John appeared before the court via video conference, George standing firm beside him. "Mr. Baker, the complaint says you assaulted Mr. Brett Gunaris, striking him multiple times. How do you plead?" the judge asked. "Guilty, Your Honor, but I didn't punch him in the head." "Just 3 punches to the face," John answered. "So you confirm you struck him?" the judge pressed. "Were there any circumstances we should consider?" "Yes, Your Honor." George jumped in before John could answer. "Go on, Mr. Baker," the judge prompted. "No disrespect intended, Your Honor, but they were—" George cut in smoothly. "If it pleases the court, Your Honor, I'll explain." "Proceed," the judge said. "In short, Your Honor, the incident occurred in Mr. Baker's home. In his own bed," George said. The judge's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "And your reaction was to punch him?" "Yes, Your Honor." "After the 3rd punch, my arm was sore, and I figured it wasn't worth a 4th, John said dryly. "The court appreciates your self-control, Mr. Baker. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks, the judge stated. "That works for us, Your Honor," George replied. "Mr. Baker, you picked the wrong guy to hit. Mr. Gunares is running for state's attorney. He's furious about the medical bills and injuries. The DA's office is taking this very seriously," she warned. "Be ready," she added with a faint smile in John's direction. "Thank you, Your Honor," John said. "We'll be prepared," George assured her. "And Mr. Baker, please avoid punching anyone else in the meantime." "Of course, Your Honor," John said. "You're released on your own recognizance. Stay in the state. Mr. Hans, make sure he shows up." "Understood, Your Honor," George said. "He'll be here." As they left the courthouse, George muttered, "My God," she smiled. "I thought she seemed nice," John said. "Nice is not a word people use for her," George replied. "Around here, they call her Hanging Harriet. This is going to get interesting." The very next morning, a courier arrived at John's hotel room with a letter officially terminating his partnership. The firm cited moral grounds based on his recent arrest and pending charges. John brought the termination letter to Tim's office and dropped it onto the desk without speaking. At that point, all they could do was wait. His yacht was still tied up in Nassau. He was grounded in the state by court order, without a job, and without any clear direction. He rented a car, drove to the coast, and sat by the water until nightfall, watching the tide roll in and out. The following morning, right at 11, the hotel phone rang. "Hello, John. It's me. Please, don't do this," Maggie's voice pleaded. "Maggie, I told you." "I'm not talking to you unless you're ready to be honest," John said. "I never meant for this to happen. It just got out of hand. We grabbed a drink after work, went dancing, and it spiraled from there," she said. "Maggie, do you even realize what you did?" John said, voice trembling. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed me. I thought we were going to grow old together, laughing with our grandkids in our golden years. Everything had vanished." John slammed his hand hard against the table. "John, please hear me out," she implored. "Let me prove that I still love you. Just agree to see me. 1 meeting. No more," John said sharply. "Then you sign the papers. After that, we're finished. I'll have all the time in the world soon, probably behind bars." "Oh God, John, what happened? How did you end up fired? We were business partners, remember?" he said bitterly. "The morality clause? If one of us gets charged with a crime, the company defaults to the other. I've got a court date next week." "I won't let this happen to you," she said urgently. "You don't have a say anymore," he said, voice like ice. "Are you still involved with him? Please, just meet me. Let me show you that you still matter to me." Her hesitation hit him like a slap. "It's too late for that," John said flatly. "I just want to finish everything and move on. Just a quick lunch somewhere public," she pleaded. "Fine. Tomorrow, Deloitte's in Little Italy. Noon sharp." "Okay, John. Thank you." "I love you," she whispered. "Don't say that," John snapped. And don't call me that anymore. You lost that privilege. I'm sorry, she said in a broken whisper. John leaned back against the wall when she arrived. She still carried the same beauty from their college years, though time had softened her form, and her red, swollen eyes gave away her grief. Maggie, he said, staying seated as she approached. No hug? She asked, her smile tight and trembling. No. You're so distant, she said, her voice cracking. We spent 3 decades together, and you still chose to sleep with another man in our home, he said, voice cold as steel. Tell me, Maggie, how many times? How long did it go on? It happened only once, she said quickly. And you honestly think I'm going to buy that? John's words were knives. I swear, John, it was a mistake. It wasn't planned, it just happened. You make it sound like you tripped and fell onto him, he said bitterly. You don't have to be cruel, she flinched. Isn't that what Becky told you? He shot back mercilessly. I'm so sorry, John. I can't believe this cost you the company. Are you going to fight them? No point, John said with a grim smile. It's in the paperwork, just like your firm's own morality clause. So you're just giving up? She asked in a small voice. I'm filing for alienation of affection, John said, his tone hard. And your firm's getting sued for breach of contract. You're doing this just to hurt me, Maggie whispered. I should hurt, John said, his voice ragged. Say whatever you need to say. I'll listen. But don't think for 1 second that it changes a thing. You remember Tom, back in college? He said, his voice quiet but sharp. Yes, Maggie said softly. That was your warning, John said. There won't be another. Imagine coming home, heart pounding because you can't wait to see the love of your life. And finding them in bed with someone else, he said, voice shaking. Oh God, John, I wasn't thinking. She tried. You weren't thinking about me at all, were you? He cut her off. It hurts, John, she sobbed, tears spilling down her face. Yeah, pain's a bitch, he said coldly. You want to know real pain? Try telling your kids why their mother left. Try hearing them ask what you did wrong. I never blamed you, she said, her voice breaking apart. I only asked where you were. You need to own what you did, John said, voice flat. Until you do, nothing's ever going to change. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you. Or trust you. I warned you in college, he said bitterly. You were a 10. I was a 5. It was only a matter of time. He stood up from the table. If I'm not locked up in 2 weeks, I'm leaving this town behind forever. Where were you, John? She cried desperately. I know you were out on the boat. I found your truck. I drove it home. It's sitting in the driveway now. Give it to one of the guys, John said, brushing her off. Sid deserves it. At least he never stabbed me in the back. I don't know what's going to happen to Jimmy, she said quietly. You think I'm seeing someone else? John asked, voice deadly calm. Maggie's face drained of color. No, she gasped, trembling. Oh God, I'm so sorry. What have I done? You've torn this family apart, John said mercilessly. Please, John. You have to believe me, she sobbed. It was one time. We had drinks, and it just happened. In our bed, John spat with venom, the one place that was supposed to be sacred. Fury rose in him like a storm. Yes, she sobbed again. John, please. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore, John said, his voice breaking as he turned to leave. Don't contact me either by phone or text. Handle everything with the guys. If they reach out to me, I'll know you've taken responsibility. I'll keep you informed about whether I stay out of jail. If not, expect a call from me. You won't be the only one. John pushed his chair away from the table, threw a few bills down, and walked out without a second glance. Maggie reached out to grab his arm, but he shrugged her off with barely a look in her direction. Mr. Baker, the judge addressed him. It seems you've accepted accountability for your actions. You were speeding, but aside from that, Your conduct didn't break any major laws. She flipped through the paperwork before meeting John's gaze. Do you have any statements to make? Anything you'd like to add before I pass sentence? Your Honor, John began, I regret that my actions have brought us here today. I'm sorry for wasting your time. I wish I could promise it won't happen again. But if I ever caught my wife... He shot a quick glance at George, who leaned forward and whispered something in his ear. The judge chuckled softly. Yes, I get it, she replied. You'd probably hit him again. But next time, try to control yourself. Mr. Baker, are you currently employed? I was let go due to a morals clause, John answered. I'd like to go back to work, but it depends on how today plays out. The judge considered him for a moment. This court recognizes you acted under significant emotional distress, she said. I'm offering you a PBJ. Are you familiar with the term? No, ma'am, John replied. It means I'm neither convicting nor acquitting you today. You'll be on probation before judgment. This will remain on your record for 5 years. If you commit another offense during that time, you'll serve a sentence for both crimes. That sounds like double jeopardy, John remarked. Exactly. Do you think you can stay out of trouble? Yes, Your Honor. Having this over my head will keep me in line. Your lawyer will give you the necessary documents to sign, she said, rising from her seat. You're free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, John said as he stood, glanced at the judge with a small nod, and left the courtroom. Later, John sat down with Bob to discuss the outcome. I can't believe it, Bob said, shaking his head. I've never seen a judge go so easy on someone. PBJ for an assault charge? That's practically unheard of. What does this mean for our plan? John asked. How do we keep the business out of Maggie's hands now? First things first, you need to get back to work, Bob replied. If you don't, we might not have a business to worry about. I'll keep at it, John said. Tim, what if I come back as just an employee, not a partner? Once everything settles, Bob can reinstate me as a partner. That could work, Tim agreed. I'll check the partnership contracts. We need to make sure everything lines up with a PBJ situation. You aren't technically convicted, but we'll need to be exact. Has Maggie signed the papers yet? John asked. Not yet, Bob answered. I'm heading back to Nassau, John said. I'll work from there and figure out a way to get her to sign. Maybe I'll swing by St. Louis next week. Are you sure there's no way to fix things with her? Bob asked. No, John said, his voice firm. It's over. I just want to move on with my life. John walked down the dock toward the Down Deep, but when he saw the empty spot where Sarah's boat had once been, it hit him like a punch to the chest. A deep sorrow washed over him as he thought of all the memories, her family, the time spent on the water. She had been proof that kind, loyal women still existed. Meanwhile, Maggie stood at the window of the restaurant watching John leave. A weight pressed heavily on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Her hands trembled as she fought back the urge to reach out, to make things right like she had before. But deep down, she knew it was truly over. She closed her eyes and imagined giving him one last kiss, feeling a faint warmth spread through her as the tears slid down under her sunglasses. Mom, are you serious? Jimmy's voice was full of disbelief. You really got caught in Dad's bed? Where is he? I don't know, Maggie replied, her voice breaking. I've tried calling, but he won't answer. Sid might know where he is, but he won't tell me. I can't believe this, Jimmy said. I still love you, but what you did to Dad? I need to call him. I hope he answers. Sid, please, Maggie pleaded when he picked up the phone. Tell him to talk to me. Give me one more chance. You're still working with him? Sid asked, his voice blunt. I need the money, Maggie said weakly. I've got bills and a mortgage. Find a new job, Mom, Sid replied. If this guy doesn't matter to you, leave him. If he does, you've already left the family. It's that simple. Sid, why are you being so cruel? She cried, her voice trembling. I'm not the one who betrayed everyone, Mom. You are. Maggie's heart sank as she finally understood the depth of her mistake. Oh my God, she whispered, the weight of the realization crashing down on her. I really messed up. She hung up and sat at the kitchen table, her head in her hands, unmoving, until the darkness of evening crept into the house. Finally, she dragged herself to the bedroom, collapsed onto the bed, and stared at the ceiling, unable to grasp how everything had fallen apart. She kept telling herself it was nothing more than an error. The tears flowed freely down her face as she absent-mindedly hummed a repetitive tune, the same melody of guilt echoing in her thoughts. Meanwhile, far out in the Atlantic, the fifth storm of the season was gaining strength, projected to become a hurricane by the time it reached the Virgin Islands. Meteorologists predicted it could sweep across Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and possibly skim past the Carolinas by the weekend. Authorities were advising the communities in its path to prepare for winds over 140 miles per hour, with storm surges rising between 4 and 7 feet. John had just 48 hours to prepare for the storm's arrival. His first priority was to secure the down deep, noticing that most of the nearby boats had already been moved to safer ground. He methodically worked, tying down the remaining boats while ensuring the ropes had enough slack to withstand the fury of the storm. A few marina workers showed up to help him. "Hey," one of them called. "What's going on?" John responded. "I'm trying to get these boats tied down before the storm hits." "Longer ropes would help, and a dinghy would make the job easier," John explained. "A dinghy? What do you need that for?" the man asked, puzzled. "I plan to stretch some lines across the dock and rig up a fishing line for extra support," John explained. "I'll see what I can find." "What's your name?" the man asked. "John. And you?" "Jose," he grinned. "That's the Spanish equivalent of John, right?" John chuckled. "I think you're right." They shook hands, and shortly afterward, Jose returned with 5 additional workers and a wheelbarrow full of rope. Together, they spent the next day and a half securing the boats. The weather remained calm, and the only sound was the rhythmic crashing of waves against the shore, a stark contrast to the storm that loomed. "So, where are you planning to ride out the storm, John?" Jose asked after a while. "Maybe at the resort nearby," John replied, trying to sound optimistic. "No way," Jose said, giving John a crooked smile. "Come stay with me and my family. We're safe. We've made it through plenty of storms without any problems." John hesitated. "Thanks, but I don't want to be any trouble." "You won't be," Jose insisted. "You're staying with us." With that, the decision was made. They packed up their things and headed to Jose's house, a sturdy cinder-block home with a corrugated metal roof. The house sat on a hill, which offered John some comfort. Inside, the space was simple but well kept, with a curtain of colorful beads dividing the main room. From behind the beads, an angry voice echoed through the house. Jose rolled his eyes and disappeared behind the curtain, leaving John standing awkwardly in the dimly lit room. After a tense argument that eventually quieted down, Jose reappeared, followed by a striking woman in her 30s with long, dark hair and a curvaceous figure. She extended her hand, and as John shook it, he noticed her fingers, though soft, showed signs of hard work. "Are you Jose's new friend?" she asked, her English laced with a heavy accent. "Yes, ma'am," John said politely. "I'm just here to help out." "Are you staying here for the storm?" she asked. "If it's okay with you," John replied. "Okay. Good," she said simply. "You work?" "I'm helping out," he smiled. John followed Jose outside where they worked together to secure tin sheets over the windows. As the hours passed, the neighbors arrived to lend a hand, moving from house to house as the sky grew darker and the first signs of the storm appeared on the horizon. John barely had a moment to call his sons or worry about the down deep. His focus was entirely on doing everything he could to protect the boats and the town. Later, they sat on canvas chairs on Jose's porch, the air thick with the scent of salt and impending rain. "Hermosa," the woman, brought out 2 cold beers without saying a word, handing one to each of them before retreating back inside. "Is she your wife?" John asked. Jose burst out laughing. "No, no, John. My wife's been gone for a while. That's Hermosa, my sister-in-law. Isn't she beautiful?" John nodded. "She certainly is." As more men trickled onto the porch, Hermosa returned, offering each of them a beer with a smile. Her first smile directed at John, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. John sat quietly as the men spoke, catching fragments of their conversation in Spanish, while the wind began to pick up and the sky turned a dark, foreboding gray. His thoughts wandered briefly to the down deep. He knew he had done everything he could. Now, all that remained was to wait for the sea and sky to make their move. When the rain finally began to fall, the men stood to leave. One of them lingered, shaking John's hand firmly. "Gracias, John. You helped us today. You're our friend, yes?" John smiled. "Yes, sir. We're friends." The storm hit eventually, not as fiercely as expected, but still powerful enough to knock out the power. John was tossing and turning on the couch when Hermosa emerged from behind the beaded curtain. She silently motioned to the couch, and John stood to make room. Without saying a word, she settled herself beside him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They sat in silence for hours, her breathing steady and slow as she drifted into sleep. John soon followed suit, lulled by the soft patter of rain against the roof. When he woke, Hermosa was watching him, her gaze so full of tenderness and raw emotion that it took his breath away. In that moment, she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Jose arrived and immediately noticed the scene. With a casual gesture, he asked what was happening. Hermosa wasted no time in explaining. She shared how you had stayed by her side throughout the storm, offering comfort when fear had gripped her. She also remarked on your polite and respectful behavior, although it was unclear whether she was genuinely appreciative or slightly unsettled by it. Women who can truly understand them, right? John gave a brief laugh and responded, "No, I can't." Then, turning to Jose, he asked, "Are you ready to head to the dock? I need to check on Down Deep." Hermosa went inside to start preparing breakfast. "John, are you hungry?" "Let's eat on the porch," Jose suggested. The two of them grabbed their chairs and sat outside, taking in the gradual return of activity in the neighborhood. People were hauling away fallen tree limbs and tidying up their yards in the aftermath of the storm. Hermosa soon brought out plates filled with light, fluffy scrambled eggs, zesty salsa, and seasoned beef. John couldn't help but think it was the best meal he had ever tasted. After finishing their breakfast, he and Jose worked together to unload the palm fronds from the bed of Jose's weathered Toyota pickup, preparing for their next task. As John reached out to shake Hermosa's hand, she surprised him by pulling him into a warm hug and thanking him, her voice thick with a Spanish accent. He nodded quietly, stepping into the truck, trying not to let the moment overwhelm him. Jose skillfully navigated the debris-strewn roads, and they quickly reached the marina. Upon arrival, they found one boat submerged and another severely damaged, but Down Deep had emerged unscathed. Soon, Jose's crew arrived, ready to get to work. Relieved, Jose clapped John on the back and said, "We were lucky. Thanks for being here." "Jose, what about the boat that's underwater?" John asked. "Want to give me a hand?" Jose grinned. "Of course," John replied, and they headed toward the shed to gather the necessary equipment. Working side by side, they set the lift bags in place and carefully strapped them underneath the submerged hull. The ancient compressor groaned to life, inflating the bags, and slowly the boat began to rise. They pumped out the remaining water, and by the time the sun began to set, the marina was almost back to its normal state. Jose gave John a tight hug. "We couldn't have done it without you. Are you staying?" "Thanks, Jose, but I'll stay aboard Down Deep," John answered. "And please tell Hermosa I said thanks again." John started the generator to charge his phone. When it powered up, he saw several missed messages, 2 from Sid, a few from Jimmy, and 1 from Maggie. There was also a text from an unknown number. John, I heard about the storm. I hope you and Down Deep are okay. I'd love to hear from you. Sarah. After letting Sid know he was safe, John called Jimmy. Hey Jim, I saw you tried calling. Yeah, Dad, Jimmy replied. Sid was really worried about you. I'm sorry, Dad. Mom explained everything to me. I'm glad, Jim, John said. I've told you before, never pick sides until you know the full story. I get it now, Dad, Jimmy said. But could you ever forgive her? For the sake of the family? John's voice turned firm. Jim, I can't. She broke something inside of me. I can't go through that again. Meanwhile, Maggie was pacing back and forth at Becky's house, her anxiety mounting. Oh God, Becky, she said, wringing her hands. He's out there on that boat. I just hope he's safe. Maggie, if anyone can handle this, it's John, Becky reassured her. What's your next step? Before Maggie could respond, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find a man standing there. Are you Margaret Baker? He asked. Yes. May I see your ID? Maggie replied hesitantly. Her face went pale as panic spread. Oh my God. Am I being served? She stammered, turning to Becky in distress. He's really divorcing me. The man handed her an envelope. You've been served, he confirmed. Maggie collapsed onto the couch, clutching the papers in her hands. No, 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 she whispered in disbelief. I'm sorry, Maggie, Becky said softly. But it mattered to John. It wasn't just a mistake to him. 2 days later, John was on the deck of Down Deep, fixing the bilge pump, when he heard a voice. What are you up to? Sarah called, standing nearby in a pink and white striped top. John quickly walked over. Sarah, what are you doing here? I heard about the storm, she explained. I texted you, but I didn't get a reply. Can I come aboard? Of course. Let me grab a chair, John said. Where are you staying? Sarah offered a small smile. Nowhere yet. Most of the hotels are still closed. I came straight from the airport. I'm sorry, John. It was probably a bit foolish of me. Why foolish? John asked, confused. I thought I had lost you, she admitted, her eyes filled with emotion. I couldn't bear the thought of you being out there alone and needing help. She shook her head, looking uncertain. I'm sorry, John. Maybe I shouldn't have come. The moments we shared, Sarah, were everything to me. You truly are an extraordinary woman. We'll find a way through this, and Jose will help us work it out. Everything will be all right, John reassured her. A tear slipped down Sarah's cheek. I'm going back to the airport, she whispered softly. Let's talk to Jose first, John suggested kindly. Just give me a moment. He leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on the top of her head before walking away to find Jose. In the days that followed, John and Sarah spent their time fishing, sailing, relaxing on the beach, and getting to know each other even more deeply. When the time came for John to return to St. Louis, they flew back to the mainland together. Over the next few months, they spoke often on the phone. John eventually rented a house on the island and set up a workspace there. He arranged with Bob to go back to the office a few days each month, travel directly from Nassau to client sites, and manage his design projects remotely. Before long, Bob promoted John to a shareholder role, and they opened a new branch office, hiring 5 engineers and a full support team to handle assignments on the island. Meanwhile, Maggie agreed to the divorce settlement. She kept the family home, and they split their financial assets equally. Maggie also filed a lawsuit against the law firm for misconduct, which resulted in Brett being fired. After struggling to find new employment, Brett eventually relocated. The lawsuit Brett had filed against John was dismissed, and John received a financial settlement from the firm, which he decided to save for his future grandchildren. One sunny afternoon, Sid and Kristen visited along with Jim and Courtney. and Sarah and Maggie met for the first time. John sat on the porch of his bungalow, gently rocking his newborn grandchild in a sturdy chair, while Maggie stood at the bottom of the porch steps. "I thought we were supposed to do this together, John," Maggie said softly. "I'm truly sorry," John replied, his voice laden with regret. "It didn't mean anything to me." "But it meant everything to me," Maggie said, her voice trembling. "It made me feel like what we had didn't matter to you. It destroyed my trust, and it broke my heart. I had to move forward, or let it tear me apart," John said quietly. Just then, Sarah came out onto the porch, carrying a tray with iced tea and a bottle for the baby. She looked briefly at Maggie, then at John, and then back at Maggie. "Hi," she said with a warm smile. "You're beautiful, just like John said." "I'm Sarah," she introduced herself, extending her hand. Maggie's shoulders drooped, and a single tear slid down her face. "I hope we can be friends," Sarah said with a hopeful smile. "Hi, Sarah," Maggie responded, shaking her hand. "I hope so too." She looked at John once more. "Take good care of him. He deserves it. You're a lucky woman. This story may end, but the adventure continues. A new tale is ready for you. Let's get started." I gazed out at the endless shimmering ocean, watching the gentle waves caress the untouched beach. A profound sense of fulfillment washed over me, an unfamiliar joy as I stood beside my wife, marking 30 extraordinary years of marriage. Yet, in an instant, the tranquility of this paradise shattered into turmoil. "Mary," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady, "we're here, celebrating 3 decades of our life together on this beautiful island, and you're telling me you want to sleep with another man? How could you even ask something like that?" I continued, trying to stay calm. "Mark, please don't be upset," Mary said softly, her voice filled with the kind of gentle concern I had always adored. "You know how much I love you. I just want to help John and Amy, that's all. You felt how deeply their story moved us both, didn't you?" She paused before adding, "It's just for one night, Mark. One night to bring some joy to a lonely old man who doesn't have much time left. And besides, I won't leave you completely alone. I've seen the way you look at Amy. She's a beautiful young woman." "Yes, Amy is lovely," I replied with firmness, "but she is not my wife. I understand that she wants you there for her father, and if she's offering herself as part of the deal, that's one thing. But she still isn't my wife. I've never betrayed you, and up until 5 minutes ago, I trusted that you wouldn't betray me either." "I've never been unfaithful to you, Mark," Mary insisted, her voice steady but edged with an emotion I couldn't fully place. "And I never will. That's why we're having this conversation. You and John went off on the jet skis, and Amy and I spent the whole afternoon talking. She knows how lonely John has been since his wife passed away 3 years ago, and with his diagnosis, his time is running out." She continued with quiet urgency, "Mark, all Amy wants is for him to experience the joy of being with a woman one last time before it's too late." "But why you?" I asked, incredulous. "Why not hire a professional for him? If they can afford this vacation, they can afford a companion," I argued. "Amy tried that back home," Mary explained, her voice soft but insistent. "Before they left, she suggested it to John, but he was furious. He doesn't believe in paying for companionship. He insists that any woman who shares his bed must do so willingly, not because she's being paid." "So, you're saying you actually want to be with John?" I blinked, stunned by her words. "What? I thought this was about pity, but now you're saying you desire him? This isn't just about helping a dying man. This is about you wanting to be with him?" Mary's eyes flashed with irritation. "Don't be so crude, Mark. Yes, John is handsome, charming, and kind. He's masculine and gentle. While I wouldn't do this if he weren't dying, I admit it. I think I'll enjoy it." She took a breath, then continued, "But look at Amy, Mark. She's 20 years younger than us, and she's stunning. You can't tell me you wouldn't enjoy being with her. So it sounds like you've already made up your mind about being with John, huh? I said bitterly. And I suppose Amy has already told him about your plan? Did you already talk to him? Did you tell him I agreed? I demanded, my voice rising. Yes, Mark, Mary confessed, her eyes not meeting mine. While you were in the shower, I spoke with John. I told him a little lie. I said that we've swapped before and that you were eager to be with Amy. Amy also told him she would be happy to be with you. John was hesitant, but eventually he agreed. I'll meet him at his villa at 7:30, and Amy will be here at the same time. So, when you asked my permission, it was just a way to tell me this was already decided. I said, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. I don't have a say in this at all. Mary looked at me, and for a moment her expression softened. Mark, I know this is hard, but this is something I feel I must do. Giving John one last chance to feel alive as a man, it's important to me. Please, Mark, enjoy your time with Amy tonight, and tomorrow we'll be together again, just the two of us. She stood and began walking back to the villa, her steps purposeful, leaving me to grapple with a rush of conflicting emotions. How had I ended up in this nightmare? The woman I had trusted and loved for 30 years was walking away to spend the night with a man we had only just met, a man who was easily over 60. Mary had always been compassionate, but now it seemed that her kindness was being offered to this aging man with silver hair. This wasn't about sympathy. She was attracted to him, and she was using his diagnosis as an excuse to be with him. I couldn't let this happen. I stood up and stormed back to the villa. Inside, Mary was getting ready, wearing a light summer dress and sandals. The perfume I had given her filled the air. She was putting on a second diamond earring. Stop! I shouted, the words leaving my mouth in a rush of anger. I bought you those earrings to show my love, not so you could wear them while you betray me. Take them off. And the perfume, I bought you that too. Wash it off. Now. It's one thing for you to humiliate and betray me tonight, but you'd better believe I won't stand by and watch you do it while wearing the gifts I gave you for our anniversary. Mark, you're overreacting. Mary's voice was quiet, almost pleading. I'm not betraying you, she continued, trying to justify herself. We had an agreement, remember? We're just changing things up a bit. You'll be with Amy now. Go on, leave me alone so I can get dressed. I moved quickly, stepping toward her, and grasped her left wrist tightly. Without a moment's hesitation, I slid her wedding rings off her finger and held my palm out expectantly. Hand me the earrings, or I'll take them off you myself. Mary's face contorted in disbelief as she reluctantly took off her earrings and placed them in my hand. I shoved them into my pocket and turned to walk away. Don't bother coming back tomorrow, I snapped. Stay with them. I walked over to the fridge, grabbed a 6-pack of beer, and made my way to my chair by the beach. I cracked open a bottle and took a long swig, my eyes fixed on the endless expanse of water before me. My thoughts were muddled, a whirlwind of confusion. What was I supposed to do? What could I even do? If Mary came to me now and told me she wanted to end things, I wasn't sure I could forgive her. If she's with him tonight, it would mark the end of our marriage. I sat in silence, wrestling with the storm inside my mind for what felt like an eternity, before Amy's voice broke through. Mark? She was standing in front of me, her voice gentle. I've been looking for you. Would you like me to sit here with you, or would you prefer to go inside? Amy moved around the chair to stand directly in front of me. Amy, I said firmly, you're a beautiful woman, but I'm a married man, for now. I know you and Mary had plans for tonight, but I never agreed to this. I told her I wasn't okay with it, but she went ahead with John anyway. She's cheating on me with your father, and once we get back home, I'll be filing for divorce. Oh my God, Mark, Amy gasped. You can't mean that. You know why she's doing this. It's out of kindness. She's not cheating on you. She loves you. I know you love her too. Please, Mark, let me help you forget all of this, even if it's just for one night. Amy began to slip one strap of her summer dress off her shoulder, then the other, allowing the fabric to fall to the floor gracefully. She stood there, tall and confident, her breath deepening as she did. She was stunning. Her blonde hair caught the wind, blowing gently around her. She stood with a poise that commanded attention, her hands resting on her hips, bright red nails contrasting with her tanned skin. Her eyes met mine with a look that was both knowing and teasing. "We could have some fun," she said with a playful smile. "She's already having her fun. Don't you deserve to enjoy yourself too? Mark, I've been looking forward to this night. Please come inside with me. Let me help you forget everything, just for tonight." Amy reached out to me, her hand gently urging me toward the villa. The 4 beers I had downed made it easier to ignore my better judgment, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. I stood up, took her hand, and led her into the villa. Without hesitation, I marched to the bedroom and told Amy to grab the wine from the fridge. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it securely. "Mark," Amy's voice called out from the other side. "Let me in. What's going on?" "Please, Mark. Open the door. Please." "Amy!" I shouted back, my voice thick with frustration. "My wife has decided to betray me and break our vows. That doesn't mean I'll do the same. I made a promise, and I'll keep it until the divorce is final. You can leave, or you can sleep on the couch, but you're not sleeping with me." Amy pleaded for a while longer, but eventually, she gave up. I climbed into bed and pulled the pillow over my head, blocking out the world. Drained from the emotional weight and helped along by the alcohol, I eventually drifted off to sleep. But even as exhaustion took over, something began to bother me. Amy's desperation to be with me, John's sad story, the timing, it all seemed too convenient. Her sudden attraction to a man much older than her felt off. If I was being manipulated, I swore I'd make sure everyone involved would pay for it. I awoke to loud pounding on the bedroom door. "Mark, open up! Let me in! Mark!" This time, there was no mistaking the voice. It was my unfaithful wife, relentlessly hammering at the door. "Mark, sweetheart, please open the door. We need to talk. We can put all of this behind us. Please, Mark. I love you. I know I've hurt you, but it's over now. We can start fresh today. Please, Mark. Today's our last day on the island. I want to spend it with you, my husband, the only man I've ever loved." The sunlight streamed through the window, harsh and unrelenting, causing my head to throb. The pounding on the door didn't help. I dragged myself out of bed, walked to the door, and threw the bolt open. Mary rushed into the room, throwing herself at me, desperate for my embrace. I shoved her away with force. "Don't touch me," I growled, my fury boiling over. "You come to me straight from his bed, and you think I'll just welcome you back? Have you lost your mind? I can smell him on you from here." Mary was told to step into the shower and wash herself off. Her initial reaction was a stunned silence, followed by tears that she couldn't control. She turned away from me, running toward the bathroom while apologizing repeatedly through her sobs. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." "I'll be out in a moment, I promise," she said, still shaking with emotion. "Please, Mark, forgive me." I let out a heavy sigh, overwhelmed by frustration and a sense of helplessness. Wandering into the kitchen, I prepared a cup of coffee, wishing for some way to communicate with the outside world, anything to escape before our departure at 6 p.m. The clock showed it was only 11:30 a.m. That meant I'd be stuck with her for the rest of the day. While she showered, I stepped outside, hoping to use my emergency satellite phone. I called my close friend Roger, a private investigator, and gave him the names of John Phillips and Amy Phillips. I explained the situation and shared my suspicions. I needed answers before we left the island. Mary soon returned from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her damp hair falling over her shoulders. Just 2 days ago, I would have rushed to embrace her, holding my beautiful bride in my arms. Now, I remained in my chair, sipping my coffee and staring at her in silence. "Mark," she said, her voice tentative. "I've cleaned up," she continued softly. "I washed everything, over and over again. Mark, please, I'm still the same. I'm still your wife. Please say something." I answered her with detachment. "Get dressed. We need to talk about what comes next." "But Mark," her voice cracked as she begged, "aren't you going to take me back?" "Did Amy and John tell you that?" I asked in disbelief. "Did they say I'd want you back? That I would prove to you that I still desire you?" She nodded, her eyes wide with hope. "Please, Mark, take me back. Make me yours again." My anger erupted. "Enough!" I shouted. "I will never touch you again. Now go and put some clothes on." In tears, she ran to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I poured the last of my coffee into my mug as she returned a short time later. She glanced at the empty coffee pot, knowing better than to ask me for more. Silently, she filled it up and set it to brew again. When the coffee was ready, she poured herself a cup and sat at the table. "Mark," she began, her voice shaky, "Amy told me you locked her out last night. I don't understand. I thought you would have enjoyed spending the night with that young woman, and then we'd laugh about it later. I thought you'd make love to me all day." Her words hit me like a slap across the face. "Who are you?" I asked in utter disbelief. "How can you even think I'd be okay with that?" "We're on a deserted island," she explained, almost pleading. "The other villas are empty. It's just the four of us. No one would have known what happened. You had a beautiful, willing young woman there, and I gave you my blessing. What man would pass up that opportunity?" "You don't get it," I said, my voice rising with emotion. "I love you, and only you. It doesn't matter that no one else would know. I would know. I made vows, Mary. Vows mean something. You do what you promised, even when no one's looking. Your vows didn't mean anything to you, but they meant everything to me, and you broke them." Mary attempted to defend herself, a hint of anger creeping into her voice. "I thought you'd enjoy it. Sure, I knew you might feel hurt at first, but once you were with Amy, I thought you'd have a good time. I didn't know you'd lock her out. I thought you'd be like me, having a great night." I couldn't hold my frustration back any longer. "Like your great night with John, you mean?" "Yes," she snapped back without hesitation. "It was a great night. John is great company. I enjoyed it. You could have had a good night too, but no, you had to be the saint. It's your own fault you missed out." I took a deep breath, trying to collect myself before speaking more calmly. "No, Mary. I've already had 5 wonderful nights with you. I didn't need or want a night with Amy. I was looking forward to another great night with you, but you chose to be with John because you thought he needed you. Well, I needed you too. But that didn't matter to you, did it?" I stood up and walked toward the beach, collapsing into my chair and pulling my hat over my eyes, pretending to sleep while I waited for Roger's call. When the satellite phone vibrated in my pocket, I stood up quietly and walked down the shore to answer. "Mark," Roger's voice was somber. "You were right. These people are con artists. Their real names are Ron Cook and Amber Jones. They've pulled this scam at least 4 times, targeting older couples at luxury resorts during anniversaries. Their signature move is the dying man routine. They get the wife to sleep with Cook, and then a few months later, Jones contacts her, claiming Cook has died and that they need money to ship his body back to the States. The weight of his words hit me hard. This was all a setup, a carefully orchestrated lie, and I had almost fallen for it. I muttered a curse, seething in anger, that son of a bitch, as I realized how easily Mary had been manipulated. Roger, ever the opportunist, didn't miss a beat and continued, "There's more to it. Cook has been bragging online about his penchant for sleeping with married women, only to turn their husbands into unwitting payers later on. He's built quite the reputation in certain shady circles." The realization of the depth of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. With a cold, controlled fury, I said, "Send me everything you've got." Before I could calm myself, I added, "And Roger, I need one more thing." Exactly an hour later, A shadow appeared, casting over me. I looked up to see John, my wife's companion, wearing that smug look of his. "Hey, man. Sorry for the misunderstanding," John said, his voice thick with false regret. He continued, "I really thought you were in on it last night," feigning sincerity, but the grin tugging at the corners of his mouth betrayed him. That was the moment everything clicked into place. It had all been a setup. This con artist had spun a web of lies for Mary, and she had blindly fallen for it. This man thrived on seducing married women and used Amy to execute his scheme. "I understand now, John," I said, slowly rising to my feet. John extended his hand, attempting to make peace, but I could see the smugness in his eyes, the belief that he had outwitted me. Without hesitation, I offered him my left hand, purposefully making it awkward as I met his in a mock handshake. His gaze flickered down to my left hand for just a second, and in that split moment, I swiftly drove my right fist into his throat. He immediately clutched at his neck, stumbling backward. Seizing the opportunity, I moved in and landed a powerful kick to his groin. He crumpled to his knees, and I followed with a brutal elbow strike to the side of his head. For a brief moment, I considered dragging his limp body into the water to finish him off, but then Mary's scream broke through my thoughts. I turned just in time to see her sprinting towards me, only to dash right past me and head straight for John. "Oh my God, what have you done?" she cried as she knelt beside him. "Oh, John, are you all right?" she asked, slapping him lightly in an attempt to revive him. I couldn't help but let out a quiet laugh as I watched her slap the exact spot where my elbow had struck. "That's gotta sting," I muttered under my breath, but not a hint of sympathy crossed my mind. I turned away and walked back toward the villa, grabbing a beer and some lunch as I went. I sat on the porch, casually watching as Mary and Amy helped the bulky John limp back to his villa. When John looked back at me, the smugness had vanished, replaced entirely by fear. I didn't see Mary again until we were about to leave the island. She was hurriedly gathering her things and rushing them down to the pier. Once on the boat, Amy and Mary spoke with a crew member, and I assumed they had contacted the mainland. Sure enough, when we arrived, we were greeted by a uniformed officer. "Mark and Mary Stevens?" the officer asked. I nodded. "Please come with me," he instructed. We followed him to a small office where he gestured for us to sit. After offering us drinks, the officer got straight to the point. "I understand you had an encounter with Ron Cook and his associate, Amber Jones," he said. "No, officer, you've got it all wrong," Mary interjected. "They're the Phillips, John and his daughter Amy." She shot me a glare. "Oh, those were the names they went by this time?" the officer asked, raising an eyebrow. "I apologize, officer," Mary said, her voice laced with indignation. "John and Amy are new friends of mine, and my husband attacked poor John for no reason." The officer remained unfazed. "Madam, please remain silent," he said sternly. "I need to speak with Mr. Stevens, and I request no further interruptions." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Please, just call me Mark. Now, how can I assist you, officer?" "Mark," the officer said, a knowing look in his eyes. "I believe you've pieced together Cook's scheme, and that's why you expressed your displeasure earlier. Am I correct?" "You could say that," I replied, a cold smile playing on my lips. "My friend sent me quite the dossier on Mr. Cook and Ms. Jones." The officer chuckled. "Well, Mark, this is actually the 5th time Cook has pulled this con on an unsuspecting tourist." He leaned forward, his tone turning serious again. "At least it's the 5th time we've been alerted to it through complaints or incidents. Who knows how many other times he's gotten away with it. The next phase, as you may already know, is that Ms. Jones will contact your wife in a few months, claiming Cook has passed away. She'll then ask for money to bring Cook's body back to the States to be buried beside his late wife." "Wow," I muttered, realizing the full scale of the scam. "That's a much bigger operation than I thought. He sleeps with the wives and then gets his accomplice to extort them for money. What a scheme." Yes, the officer agreed. But thanks to you, I think Cook's days are numbered, at least here at our resort. In fact, he continued, we now have enough evidence from previous victims to press charges, if you're willing to testify, of course. Who is Jones then? I asked. She can't possibly be his daughter. The officer sighed. Amber Jones was a dancer at a Miami club when Cook met her. He had just won a small lottery prize and convinced her he was wealthy. They traveled together for a while before embarking on this scam. Now it's essentially all they do. She dreams of being an actress and thought this would be a stepping stone. He shook his head in disbelief. Cook gets a thrill from betraying the husbands, and then he has the wives send Amber money. He brags that it's like the husbands are paying him for being with their wives. At that moment, I glanced over at Mary. She sat beside me, tears streaming down her face as she began to sob. I can hardly fathom the extent of my own naivety. I let go of my husband based on a falsehood. Mrs. Stevens, you're not alone in this, the officer said with a comforting tone. There are 2 other women who are also planning to take legal action against Cook and Jones for the same fraud. He went on. If you and your husband choose not to pursue charges, I might be able to convince Mr. Cook to do the same. Either way, your flight leaves tomorrow morning, and once you're airborne, my jurisdiction ends. I glanced at Mary, who gave a quiet nod and murmured, I just want to go home. Please, Mark, just take me home. But my mind was set on something different. Actually, officer, I interrupted, I intend to press charges. In fact, I want to make sure these 2 never deceive anyone again. Mary's face twisted in dread. Mark, please. I just want to forget this ever happened. That's where we differ, Mary, I replied, my tone icy. You want to forget. I want justice. The next morning, just before our flight, I met with the officer and the resort security team. They had gathered concrete proof that Cook and Jones had scammed many other couples. I signed the necessary documents to formally join the case against them. Although Mary refused to cooperate, my testimony was enough to ensure that the case moved forward. Once we were home, I put my plan for revenge into action. Before we even reached our house, I handed Mary divorce papers. She begged, promising to do anything to save our marriage, but my decision was resolute. Mark, please, she wept that night. I made a terrible mistake. I was manipulated, she sobbed. Yes, you were, I answered coldly, because you allowed it. Part of you wanted that night with him, even though it was all a lie. What Mary didn't know was that Roger had helped me secure the best divorce lawyer in the state, someone specializing in infidelity cases. We had already moved substantial assets, all legally, to safeguard what I had spent 30 years building. But I had something even more significant. During our marriage, Mary had taken control of our charitable donations, and through this, I uncovered that she had been embezzling funds for years to support a secret shopping addiction. She had designer clothing hidden at her sister's home, jewelry stashed in a safety deposit box I had never known about. Roger's investigation had unearthed everything. Before Mary could tell her version of events, I presented the evidence of her financial dishonesty to our children. I wasn't seeking revenge. I simply wanted them to know the truth about the island, the scam, and the financial deceit that had been going on for years. They were stunned, but in the end, they supported me. The divorce was an ugly battle. When her financial misdeeds came to light in court, she lost all claims to spousal support and a fair share of our assets. The judge granted me 80% of the estate. Her reputation among our social circle was obliterated once the details of her actions, both on the island and financially, were revealed. 6 months after the divorce, Mary found herself in a modest apartment, working a retail job, and isolated from most of our former friends. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild my life. My daughter, noticing my loneliness, introduced me to Elizabeth, a widow who lived next door. She was a kind, sincere woman. We immediately clicked. Elizabeth valued integrity and honesty over materialism, qualities I had come to deeply appreciate. 2 years after the fiasco on the island, Elizabeth and I got married in a small, intimate ceremony with close family and friends. Mary wasn't invited, but I later heard she had been watching from across the street as we left the church. Cook and Jones were eventually convicted of fraud and sentenced to prison. Their trial made national headlines, and several other victims came forward. Mary was compelled to testify, and her humiliation was complete when the full extent of her betrayal was made public. On our first anniversary, Elizabeth suggested we take a vacation. "Somewhere quiet," she said. "Maybe with mountains instead of beaches." I smiled and kissed her. "Mountains sound perfect," I replied. "I've had enough of paradise islands." Sometimes I reflect on everything that transpired and marvel at how a single trip to paradise destroyed a 30-year marriage. Mary lost everything: her husband, her reputation, her lifestyle, and her dignity, all for a night with a fraud. As for me, I lost my illusions about the woman I had loved for 3 decades. But in the end, I found something better: a life built on honesty and genuine love. I can assure you, Elizabeth and I won't be spending any anniversaries in an island paradise. Our story has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the way I tell stories, head over to my channel and check out my other videos. May the force be with you. See you soon, my friend.